Hey everybody, welcome to my favorite shitty movie. Very excited for tonight's show personally, because I'm a lover of the 80s and 90s action garbage movies. And so is our guest, Jared Murray, who picked tonight's movie, Blown Away. And Blown Away is like its greatness and badness at once is at the same level. And I really think if you love bad action movies, you have to see this. Jared is a Steven Seagal guy, from the 90s, as I am, and he loves this movie Blown Away with two of the bridges and Tommy Lee Jones and Forrest Whitaker. By the way, like kills it in this movie. He's given the most thankless but necessary to the narrative character, and he just kills it. I'm such a huge Whitaker fan. Before we bring on Jared and we talk about this movie, I have to bring on my co-host. Her name is Tracy Mercer. She's been working on a indie film that she shot in Ireland or somewhere with Mila Jovovich. Like, if anyone is keeping the movies alive, it's Tracy Mercer. Here she is.
Wow, I don't know about that, but it's going to be awful fun, y'all. It was either this or Amadeus 2, and this seemed easier. So
Amadeus, oh, you were asked to.
we were
There's
going
an
to,
Amadeus too.
well, we were going to do like a prequel, like what's wrong with Salieri? Let's get into that story. He's in prep school. No, we didn't do that. No, it's a fun time. I'm also very excited to talk about this movie because full disclosure, I have always had like a Jeff Bridges thing. I think you can't be our age. I mean, no one is more beautiful than he is, and against all odds. I mean, then there's Starman, proof that John Carpenter can do a love story. He's just wonderful. I love him in
Fearless. People
Fearless.
forget about Fearless.
Fearless.
That movie's crazy.
A great Peter Weir. That's a haunting film. It's one of those few films that I've ever seen that like gets grief right. And that particularly about survivor's guilt and what does that look like? And Rosie Perez, who shows up in Spike Lee films and is a wonderful comedian, but if you watch her in Fearless, you're like, this lady has some dramatic range. I believe she was up for supporting actress for that.
Bubbles.
Great,
Bubbles.
Bubbles. She's just so good, and so I don't know. But this one, it's funny because I remembered Bridges was having that moment, and he was like this big leading man. He's gorgeous. It had Jagged Edge had worked, and this is like, a decade after that. And, he allegedly wanted to be in action films. And so he was looking for something a little bit more commercial. And so in 1994, this film comes out. Director Stephen Hopkins, who, full disclosure, I was lucky enough to meet. And I had a project when I worked with Morgan Freeman's company we had developed with him. It didn't get made ultimately, but he was really interesting. He'd done Under Suspicion with Morgan and Gene Hackman and Tom Jane. Would talk about a cast back in the day. But more importantly for our show, he also did, I think, maybe my favorite Elm Street, if not the best, Dream Warriors Part 3. To those in the know.
No, that's not true.
It's Hopkins, isn't it?
Hopkins directed 3 and 5.
5. Is it 5? The Dream Child?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Dream Child's 5. You're right. It's not 3. It's 5. But I love
which
that
is an underrated.
It is. I like because it's so unexpected. There's so many gory gifts, but also it's the one where Freddie's a comedian where I think he's the funniest. Fight me. But I love him in that. It Goes to the Darkness, which I think is like, I think has a weird tie into this film because it's another film where a big star who shouldn't be doing accents tries and then stops. And it Goes to the Darkness, right? It's Michael Douglas. It's Michael Douglas. It's like, they're doing it for the pleasure. And then he sees the dailies and then he goes back to Michael Douglas Streets of San Francisco. He never goes back to whatever that like Quint, I'm in South Africa, hunter mode, or whatever he was doing. This film, accents come and go in ways that you couldn't believe. And like we were saying at the top of the show, like when you have someone so famous, like, Tommy Lee Jones is so American, There's no
Mhm.
version of him ever convincing us he's an Irish terrorist or bomber. I think
He's an IRA retiree, but
yeah,
like I think a lot when I watch stuff like this about how George Clooney chose on Perfect Storm to not have an accent because
yeah.
he didn't want it to be distracting. But the problem was he was a Gloucester fisherman, and the fact that he didn't have an accent was distracting.
I think the
Um,
lack of coherent narrative was distracting.
well, no, yeah, for sure,
I
and
mean,
the
the
lack
Perfect
of
Storm,
consistent accents
a Perfect
were
Storm is
distracting.
a studio, and again, the great late Wolfgang Peterson. It was a long way since Das Boot, right? But the whole concept of Perfect Storm is like, so there's Diane Lane, who's this like hot bartender in a bar. She's basically Jennifer Connelly from Maverick. I'm hot.
Mhm.
I work at a bar. Guys come in and out. There's a storm. So these fishermen can either hang out and like Clooney can hook up with Diane Lane, or he can go out on a ship where he won't survive. And he's like, we should go out on the ship. And then the predictable perfect storm happens because they had to get the fish. They couldn't wait for the storm to pass and then get the fish. So
Mhm.
then I'm like, who am I rooting for in this? And then when you think it's a storm movie, then they have the plastic shark, which looks right out of Batman the movie. Attack
Mhm.
Marky Mark. And you're like, this is not a great film. I think Blown Away comes in around the same, kind of couple of years before that. But it's such fun. And I had not
It
seen
comes after. I mean, it comes after the Perfect Storm, right?
yeah, Perfect Storm is like later than this.
It
But
is.
yeah,
That's
so
crazy.
this is
When the fuck was Perfect Storm?
94. I feel like that was early 2000s because Clooney had to be an ER star before he can get a movie.
That's
Um,
crazy.
but like, yeah, but I think it's interesting with this one because I remember
I mean,
seeing
it's just they should have learned from the mistakes of the past. That's the whole point.
they should have. But I think what's fun about this one was I remember the trailer. I remember seeing Jeff Bridges in a way I hadn't seen him before. And then it's this movie that seems to want to be a character centric, kind of a character driven piece because they spend some time with these characters. But then there's no room for like a sensical plot. Like I can't wait for Jared to come on to explain to us how characters get from point A to point B from one scene to another, and like why balls have dolphins on them that are connected to a boat, and
Yeah.
go to this bar and there's a guy who's there all. I can't wait for him to explain that.
What year did Speed come out? It was
94, I think, same year this
so
one.
they came out the same year. So this isn't a ripoff. It's just the same thing at the same time.
It is the same, but it's that thing where sometimes it happens in Hollywood where, like where you had like Dante's Peak in Armageddon and you had Deep Impact in Armageddon and you had Dante's Peak in Volcano.
Right.
If you were paying attention, there was a Peter or Patrick Bergen Robin Hood the same year we had Prince of Thieves. Like there's these weird cycles of like,
Yeah,
and
right.
this one is almost the same. But I think that's where we were. They were looking for movie stars to top line action driven content with a hook. And this has, I mean, the writers of this, Rice and Batir, haven't worked a whole lot in movies since, but best known probably for Wind Talkers, the Nick Cage movie, which is
Oh yeah.
historically questionable. It turns out the Navajos saved us, not the, anyway, it's fine. But
Windfuckers is a bad movie.
so but it's this weird movie where you see Bridges bringing all of his like acting chops, but he's also like, I'm a leading man now. And so I think there's the great actor that gets to do True Grit, and then there's like the guy in Against All Odds who's kind of great looking and he's the leading man. And it's just such an odd movie that I think it makes almost no sense, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's good. And I mean, the main thing that I love about it is the accent work. It
Yeah.
for me is what makes this movie a great bad movie.
Thank you, Jeff. So only
Thank
6
you,
years.
Jeff. So it's 2000. So it's like 6 years after this. Very interesting. But let's what's Joseph Bryan saying the real here?
Oh, before they lost radio content, come on, they went down instantly in real life. Just a bad movie. I agree with you, Joseph. It's
Yeah,
just
no. Well, the great thing about movies like A Perfect Storm, and there are others, is it's a true story, but we don't know what happened because it was just people lost at sea.
I think
So
it's
you can make up whatever story you want as long as you name the characters.
I think the SAT equivalent and correct answer is Perfect Storm is a true story in the same way that Cocaine Bear is a true story. I think that's kind of the correct.
Actually, that's absolutely true.
Yeah.
Cocaine Bear is based on a true story. I know you don't agree with me on this, but I think Cocaine Bear is more effective as a movie than The Perfect Storm.
Oh, I agree with you on that.
Oh, okay.
I think Perfect Storm is unwatchable. I had fun with Cocaine Bear.
I didn't know you thought Perfect Storm was unwatchable.
I would have called it Ship of Fools. I was like, all you boys need to stop working out and read a book and just hang out.
The Perfect Storm works for me only because John Hawkes and Rusty Schwimmer are the only people in it who do actually appropriate, effective accent work, and their story is their subplot is very sweet, but it doesn't matter ultimately. You're right. Because Perfect Storm has George Clooney, and we need to stop trusting him. Ladies and gentlemen,
with that great segue,
we have a literary manager and producer who loves Blown Away. He loves action movies. I love his taste in movies. We're simpatico as far as what he loves and does not. He brought a Steven Seagal movie to this show before. Please welcome Jared Murray.
Jared,
hey guys.
Fan, nice. Oh my God, the U2 needle drops in this, amazing.
Do you are like your background? Are you going to do a tight five before we get going?
Yeah, I'm thinking we'll work out some stuff on stage if you guys don't mind.
No, it's fine.
You forgot about American Ninja 2.
Yes,
right, American Ninja 2. Yes, of course.
But I think this is probably the best movie we've talked about. I think.
which is horrible. It's not this movie is not good. I love it because of all the bad choices it makes, but the bad choices are so nuanced. It's like, it's like Stephen Hawkins never took anyone aside and said, I think you need to research your accent further. Outside of the Lucky Charms commercials, you need to figure out.
I sorry to interrupt, but I listened to the commentary on the DVD for this, and the first thing he talks about is how Tommy Lee Jones nailed the Gaelic and he and Jeff Bridges, they did perfect accents.
Wait,
when they tested, the audience couldn't understand them. So they had to loop the movie two times more.
Yeah.
The entire movie, all their dialogue.
Wait, I don't believe that. I think that's a lie.
You think?
Yeah, there's no way that Tommy Lee Jones was doing a better accent than he was in the movie. You really think that's what it was? It's like they looped them doing Lucky Charms accents. I don't believe that.
What this guy's recording commentary 30 years later. What reason does he have to? He's pretty self-deprecating about what.
Well, I mean, I think that people who are involved in a project buy into it and don't necessarily admit to anything as the years go on.
But you're bringing up an interesting point, though, Jared, because the opening scene, which we'll get to when we get to the plot, there is an attempt where Tommy Lee Jones is speaking. I think it's supposed to be Gaelic. But they put subtitles and then they drop it after that. And so there's a scene where he sometimes uses subtitles and he sometimes doesn't, even when it's supposed to be something we can understand. And then it never comes back again. So it's this really awkward device where it's either reshoot the scene or something. I've never quite seen subtitles drop out within a scene itself.
So, I mean, Jared, I just want to be clear. What you've read about the accents in this movie is that they were basically torpedoed by the filmmakers and made to look like shitty actors because the filmmakers didn't understand what they were saying in their
audiences.
The test audiences did not, apparently. That was my understanding, which it seems believable.
Well,
yeah, for sure. But I mean, was it because they were so authentic, or was it because Tommy Lee Jones was doing what he was doing with an Irish accent.
I mean, that was not clear. But either way, the audience just couldn't understand what they were saying. So they're like,
You're right though, Jared, because I think Todd said, it's like when you're involved with the project, you can't see the forest from the trees. But because I'd read a little bit about it, and Hopkins was saying like, my agent, was always right, and he kept pressuring me, and I was like, I don't want to do a movie about a bomb squad of guys, this and that. They're like, oh, you have to read the script, so amazing. And so then he gets the script. God, the script was so great, I couldn't put it down, and so I had to say yes. And I was like, really? Because like the script is not a highlight of this film, and so like the concept of, and I started wondering how many times are people in Boston bombed? Like, is that a very active squad? Because you don't hear a lot about that.
Yeah, and this is way before the Olympics bombing.
It's way before the Olympics tragedy. But I also just feel like today, so this is like a spec script that has 1,000 executives' thumbprints and fanprints on it. Lots of rewrites. Bridges comes on, they get the actors, everyone gets their say. So you've got, like Frankenstein's monster of a screenplay that goes through the MGM process, especially of that era, and then they make it. But at the end of the day, I'm not really sure I could clearly follow, which is why I'm excited you're here, Jared, as a fan. Like the whole backstory of Jeff Bridges bumming around as a young guy, runs into the IRA guy. Like all of us kind of knew what the IRA was. He's like, yeah, we had fun and we did things together, like bombs and I'm sorry I let you down. Cause I'm like, he's killing people. He's a terrorist and you're a cop now, but you're not. It's
I think it's like, so his sister, Tommy Lee Jones' sister died, right? That's and so, and it's so somehow, so Jeff Bridges sees the error of his ways. Sorry, I should start calling him by his character name. Liam, aka Jimmy Dove, sees the error of his ways as a kid, and turns him in, and then goes to Boston and somehow passes a background check to get into the Boston Bomb Squad.
How did that happen?
No, it's like what were you doing? Well, I was an IRA bomber associate, and now I just wanted to take out bombs.
Why did everyone want to make movies about mad bombers in this year? Like why? Like Speed and Blown Away in the same year. And I remember, being a young person and I'd seen Speed and then I was like, oh, cool. Jeff Bridges Speed. I'll watch that. Why was that? I mean, because obviously it's not a ripoff because they had to go into production at the same time, basically, as Speed. So, like,
this
what
was
was
production
it?
a little bit before Speed, actually, because I think they were doing. I think it came out around this time The Fugitive came out.
That's right. They had to rush Speed to be released because they were afraid of Blown Away.
Yeah, and then I think Speed started shooting in the fall. And so, and then Blown Away had a release date of, I want to say April, and then they moved it to the summer because they were so confident in it. And
it happens, but it does seem. This also falls into a lot of the films that we talk about on this show. Although this is only 94 as opposed to a lot of the 80s films we typically talk about, but I don't know that today, even having just come back from Belfast, the Troubles are very much alive and well. They're not blowing up cars as much, but like there's a violence and there's a thing right under the surface, and there's a concern, to say the least. So it's not like that's ancient history there at all, but it does feel like, why does a bomber always have to be an Irish terrorist? And if they're Irish, are there other groups like, I don't know, the Pogues, perhaps, that you could listen to that aren't like, it's always you two?
I mean, I think in this era, the other thing, this is a really interesting point that you're making, Tracy, is that before this, they went with the Vietnamese or Middle Eastern terrorists. Like that's what we were doing in the 80s, and it was very clear who the bad guy was. The early 90s, like politically, it was like, well, we can't make people of color the bad guys, so who are the white bad guys that we can use? and it was the IRA.
Oh,
And, like the Devil's Own is another movie
correct.
in this era.
About the same era, and they're even the way that they. I mean, I would argue the way Hollywood we always misrepresent, but like even something like as fun and playful, and I think it's kind of a beloved classic is Back to the Future. You know, let us not forget it
Oh
begins
yeah, the
Libyan terrorists trying to blow up a mall. You know, and that's 1985, Reagan's America, right? So I mean, it's interesting. It's interesting that to your point that it was clustered into a series of plots. I don't know, but it is definitely a film of its time. But I think today there would be questions about the cliches involved with the caricatures of all of these characters. But yeah.
Well, okay, so Stephen Hopkins, like, who I've got a soft spot for. Like, I love Judgment Night.
Judgment Night is there. Predator 2.
Oh my God, yeah, Hopkins. I'm totally with you, Jared, on the Hopkins thing. Judgment Night is one of my go-to comfort food movies, but Ghosts in the Darkness, and you know, even I will watch Lost in Space. I will watch it again.
I watched The Reaping recently.
The Reaping, oh my God. Like the plagues, and it's like Hilary Swank, and one of the plagues is someone has like maggots on
That's a good one.
That's not a plague. That's an unfortunate barbecue.
I don't know. Hopkins like makes great bad action movies. They're specifically action movies. He's an action oriented
popcorn maker, but he does we should get into this right before we skip too much around.
Well, but I want to talk about just like this is like the second movie of his in a few years that deals with like a very weird POV on a very specific ethnic group. Like, you know, you got the Jamaicans in Predator 2 and the Irish here, which, like, you know, they're just kind of a bloodthirsty lot, and like somehow by completely denying their ethnic identity can they be safe from their violent nature.
It is the weirdest thing.
And the fact that like there's the climax is a 4th of July musical performance. Like there's some other things working there that I don't quite like coalesce into anything, but it's kind of bubbling under the surface.
Right. Like this is a good 4th of July movie. Like, you know,
absolutely. This is Blown Away and Drop Zone are my like that's why I threw those out at you, Todd.
Who directed Drop Zone?
John Badham.
Oh, that's a Badham picture. We should do a whole entire separate podcast about John Badham movies.
And I love him so hard because it's like he could do something like Saturday Night Fever, and then he quotes Saturday Night Fever in Short Circuit. You're like, I'm here with that War Games. Yeah. Great
and
film.
He does The Hard Way. He can work with both Michael J. Fox and James Woods at the same fucking time.
That is hard.
Yeah, that's hard.
Yeah.
But back to Hopkins.
All those guys I love.
Yeah, we should have Jared take us through the narrative.
What the hell happens in this film, Jared?
Yeah, like from where you're sitting.
And can we start with the model work?
I don't know. It looked pretty good on the on my screen, but that's pretty. Yeah. So according to Hopkins, they did this in Malibu. That was the last thing.
They
yeah.
It's a plate with a it's that's like where Cher's house is, I think. Anyway.
No, she sold that house. She's not in Malibu anymore.
Oh.
So yeah, so Ryan Garrity breaks out of prison in a very violent way.
Are those, by the way, like extensions, hair extensions, or is it a wig? What are we looking at?
I'm going with wig.
Wig, full wig.
It would take too long to dry that hair out. It's, I think for this, but I love that. Like from the minute you see Tommy Lee Jones, he is like, "How can I eat the scenery?" Like he's not holding back. From he starts at an 11 with this. I mean, like I just was like, "Are you kidding me?"
And this is the first movie post Oscar win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's only like in Natural Born Killers is not the most unhinged performance he gives this year.
Was Natural Born Killers 94 too?
Yeah, 94. He had Cobb, Blown Away, and The Client.
The Client was actually pretty good.
Yeah,
I remember
and
thinking.
and this.
Yeah, I like The Client and stuff. That's crazy though. That year was Tommy Lee Jones's year. That's what we're talking about.
You monetize that supporting actor Oscar and you go.
Yeah.
But like, how could he do it so fast? It's almost like they monetized it. His reps monetized it before he got it because they knew he was gonna get it.
But even though it seemed like I was still I'm kind of surprised that The Fugitive was. I love that movie, but like I was surprised when it got nominated for so many Oscars. And he was amazing in Under Siege. I feel that's probably the perfect Tommy Lee Jones performance for me.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Tommy Lee's great as a bad guy. I agree. I mean, he's just fun. I mean, it's funny. He played in the random trivia in the Charlie's Angels pilot episode back in the day. He's like in that, and he's kind of maybe a not trustworthy dude hanging out with Kate Jackson, Sabrina Duncan. But yeah, he's got an amazing career. I still love him in Eyes of Laura Mars. I think that's
I was just gonna say that.
a sleight of hand performance without.
But he's like a good guy until you realize, oh, that was a trick.
He's very good. So he breaks
Don't
out.
trust Tommy Lee Jones in a movie. That's all I'm saying.
That's always a good rule of thumb. So basically, Crazy Pants busts out of an Irish prison that he's been in for allegedly 20 years. And then we go, as one does, straight to Boston.
But that sequence, by the way, at the beginning, I love it so much. The jail breakout is very fun, and the way Tommy Lee Jones, he plays it so straight and without emotion. But yet at the same time, you can see he knows what he's doing, and he knows he's putting himself in mortal danger. That's actually good performance. I know his performance is mostly over the top in this movie, but in that scene, I thought he was really good.
Yeah. Tommy Lee Jones plays a murderer executioner song. I don't know. You know what? Is it? I don't remember. Why is it?
I've not seen it.
All right, so he busts out and he goes to Boston. Thank God we clarified Boston in the USA.
Yeah, and that's the bridge to Boston from Cambridge.
Look at that.
And we meet Jimmy Dove, who seems like a pretty cool dude. He's got his dog on his bike, and so he's kind of a maverick. And
a maverick
he's a maverick. He doesn't, he shows up late to his girlfriend's daughter's party, and has a cool keyboard, and then is good at his job of defusing bombs, which he doesn't really have to go do. Like he puts himself in harm's way even though he doesn't have to.
Right.
And so but what if he's not actually so cool? What if he's hiding something? What if he's secretly Irish?
Oh no, you think he is?
Well, it's so funny because Bridges from one scene to the other either has his Jeff Bridges accent or a really heavy Irish accent. So it's kind of like, I'm going to meet you in the car next to the yacht. And he's like, hey, do you guys want to go down to Vartaka? And you're like, well, it's the same character, and it's weird because he's.
When I first saw this movie in the theater, that accent work that Bridges was doing, I found very distracting. But after the reveals happened, I was like, oh, he was actually doing what he should have been doing for his character in waffling between two accents because he's full of shit. He's really Irish. He's not Bostonian, but he went back and forth. That's the way I justified his waffling accent.
Except sometimes he does it with Susie Amos, who he's now engaged and married to, and I think she would be like, "Hun, where did the whole Bono thing come from?"
Tracy, you're not wrong. I'm just trying to find a way to justify.
I love Jeff Bridges too. I can admit it's not maybe his finest hour.
No, this is definitely not his finest hour.
But he's so handsome. Look at him here. He's like, oh,
He's adorable and impossible not to like, and
is
he makes total sense.
And at
He
this
makes
point,
total sense as an action star. And I think that maybe if instead of making a movie where he had to have some dumb accent, if they just have Jeff Bridges like shooting people who are bad, that would have been fine. But Jeff Bridges is not gonna do something that's simple. He's not going to simply do a 90s action film. He has to put stuff on it.
which if the trivia IMDb the reliable, always reliable IMDb trivia is to be believed, he turned down Speed.
ooh.
To do this.
He turned down Speed because he wanted to do Blown Away.
Yeah, I guess if you think about like kind of where he was at the time. This is before like Big Lebowski's kind of the inflection point, I think, for Bridges.
Mhm.
And like he'd been in movies, he'd been the lead in movies, but like wasn't quite on that top tier. And like I think this was the first time he'd had a chance to do anything like this. And I guess the depth,
Well, I don't know, because there was, I mean, you're
there's
right.
There's not a lot to Jack Traven as a character. And
Yeah,
Speed,
this is
But I think it's
a
also
full-on action movie.
it's about the era in which it was made, because if you're the leading man that Bridges was, the genre that was taking off and making all the money at the time was male-driven action movies. It was the female rom-coms and it was the guy action movies. And if you wanted to elevate yourself to be like the heir apparent to Harrison Ford, I think he's about 10 years younger or whatever, it's through that. And then to your point, right after The Fugitive, it's like, where's my Fugitive? Where's my action film? I mean, even Meryl Streep got in on it, right? Like, I should do The River Wild. No, that would have been a Sigourney role.
Was
But
that after? That was after The Fugitive?
this one was.
River Wild, I mean?
River Wild was after, yeah. It was like 95.
That's crazy. My concept of chronology makes no sense. Like, I'm like, how are these movies? How did they all come out the same year? It doesn't make sense.
River Wild was 94.
94. So, okay. So
94 was like 84. It was a great year for movies.
But it shows you what the studios were making. So this was like MGM's attempt to counter all these kinds of things.
Tracy, you're smarter than me, and like I wrote this down, and I can't really elaborate on it because like I'm not a deep thinker, but like it feels like such an MGM movie.
Yes, it does. It does, because MGM, and it's heartbreaking, right? Because we love MGM of yesteryear. I mean, it was like, the height of glamour. It was the musicals, and then it started losing its identity. And you had MGM UA together, so the Bond franchise, right, was that inflection point that kept them going forever. And now I feel like MGM, again, is part of the Amazon family. It's trying to create its own identity. Bond is still figures prominently in their business plans, but
at this point, Bond had been
it was in trouble.
5 years at this point.
Yeah, it was in trouble, and I think MGM wanted to kind of cash in. And again, it's the trend of what's going. It's like in the rom-com world, I think Pretty Woman came out around 1990, and so that was obviously such a huge rom-com. I think highest grossing film of the year, or right up there in the top 3 at least. And so everybody's answer to that the next 2 years, right, was Mad Dog and Glory, or, Honeymoon in Vegas. And the only difference was how much did she cut? I mean, it was gross, right? But it was how we cast all those female leads. And so I think this was trying to ride the trend. And I think the reason, The Fugitive really holds up. Like, it's a really smart popcorn film. And maybe one of the few great.
It's crazy.
IP taken into a good remake.
Yeah, what's crazy is the other night I watched U.S. Marshals.
Oh God, the sequel, right? Yeah.
And it's not awful. It's perfectly good. It's like a fun action movie.
The thing that bothers me about that one is like, okay, does Tommy Lee Jones only catch guys who aren't innocent?
Yeah. No, I know. And also the other thing about that one is he's like on the vehicle with the fugitive when the crash happens. He's on the plane.
Yeah.
So
he plays almost that same character, right? In was it Double Jeopardy with Ashley?
Oh yeah.
Where he's trying to help Ashley out. She's like, so here's the plot of this film. So my husband set me up for his murder. I didn't do it, but now he's legally dead. So now I can get out and kill him in Double Jeopardy. And I'm like, that's not how the law works. That's not.
Jeff is asking which role in Speed did he turn down?
I think it's Jack Traven. I think it was the Keanu.
Was it?
role because I
Ooh.
think I listened to the 50 miles per hour podcast, which is, I don't know if you guys know it, but it's 50 episodes dedicated solely to speed. Like
Oh my
it's a deep
God.
dive on
I've
it.
heard it. Yeah.
And
Fabulous.
they talk about how Jack was written as a little older in the, and so I assume it was that one. I don't know if it would be. I don't think it was the Dennis Hopper one because Christopher Walken was
Right.
originally cast as
Nice.
Howard Payne, and
Nice
he backed
job.
out last minute.
Yeah, no, it's interesting how the casting. I always wonder what would have happened. Like I know everyone's like, oh, of course Harrison was Indy. And I'm like, I hear you, but if you watch Tom Selleck and Lasseter, there would have been a good version of Indy. It would have been different, but it could have where it wasn't as crazy as people like.
It would have been more right wingy.
Well,
But
that's before we knew he was bad for us. It's okay.
no. No, but I think there's a spirit to right wing performers, and I'm not negating that as good entertainment. I love James Woods movies. I love Tom Selleck movies.
Yeah, we just did Bestseller again, which was one.
Yeah. I love right wing entertainment. But
we're gonna get you a support group. It's okay.
Yep. I think that Harrison Ford, who's not politically like pinned downable, I don't know what the hell his thing is. But it part of the reason that Raiders stands the test of time, I think, is its lead performance is not political on any level.
He's wonderful. He's a legit movie star. I mean, he's American, masculine, funny, gorgeous, has dramatic shot. I mean, he was the whole package.
It's a crazy thing to posit, but I'm just saying you can feel a right winger's performance in movies that aren't necessarily right wing. It's like Call the Conqueror. You watch that, you don't think there's any political things about it, but oh my God, the lead performance is weird and it makes you feel.
I don't think.
Or is this your how you know them now affects your viewing of Deuce Bigalow?
No, when I saw Call the Conqueror the first time, I was like, this movie is gross.
It's so good. Okay, so Jeff Bridges, we've talked about his backstory. We have a black and white flashback because if it's in black and white, we have to know it's in the past because we don't trust audiences. So someone's died. It's bad. It's a bomb. We'll have to figure out that and unpack that later. We get the classic. Is it the red wire or the blue wire? Which is amazing.
And so while we're here, so this guy Bama is Jeff Bridges' longtime stand-in. Who
really?
They hired for this role.
Oh awesome.
God! To look at him, that totally makes sense now. Yeah,
he's actually really good, but he plays a character we'll get to when we get there. But you're right. So it's like, okay, we're the bomb guys, and we almost never have to go in and do anything, but it's still really dangerous if ever there's a bomb, obviously. So we see like this kind of ginned up sequence of there's a bomb, there's a dead guy on the floor, we don't know what happened. Someone has to keep typing the same thing over and over again on a keyboard, and you get to see that Bridges is indeed proficient. That's a long way of saying yes, he knows what he's doing. So that's a 7-minute set piece back in 1994. And then we get to meet the great Lloyd Bridges, who never met a pattern he doesn't want to combine.
This is another example of why I think Hopkins, when he talked to his actors in pre-production, told them to just watch Lucky Charms commercials to understand the Irish accent.
I wrote down Lloyd Bridges came directly from the set of Darby O'Gill and the Little People.
Oh my God, totally. He's loving it. It's so but the juxtaposition, but I was thinking what was weird because I can't believe how old this film is because I remember seeing it in the theaters. But it's also they were kind of trying to play Tommy Lee a little bit as like the sexy villain guy because you have scenes that are set up like this that I don't ever really associate Tommy Lee with like the ladies per se, but
yeah.
It's kind of fun to see he's fixed his hair and he's kind of dressing like he's Colin Farrell, but like it's kind of nice to see him getting out there a little bit in a different role.
It is nice to see Tommy. You're right, Tracy. That's a very interesting point about Tommy Lee Jones and his career.
He doesn't get the babes usually.
It's not his career is not a sexual one.
No. There's I think think there's a sex scene with Linda Hamilton and Black Moon Rising or whatever but so speaking of that, the bar scene, so his intention was just to go to Boston. He didn't know that Liam was there until he sees this, which is to me kind of like, you guys should have like make him like he's just been on revenge. Like that's he's been waiting.
Exactly. Yeah. The trope of I go into a bar or I walk into a room and the TV is on a news story exactly about my situation that I have to know exponentially, so I know what scene to go to next. That needs to be wiped out. This movie is like throughout. But yeah, then he sees, oh gosh, Jeff Bridges is here, Liam's here, and then he does like the light switches, and you're like, okay. Meanwhile, Jeff Bridges is trying to get it on with the current Miss Cameron, Susie Amos, which is nice to see her.
Are they still married?
Yes, absolutely.
Holy shit, I didn't know that. I assumed they were already divorced. God bless.
No,
God bless.
30 years.
Yeah, but it's nice to see her in a studio movie. And so but it's weird because this goes back to the script and too much development, or maybe not enough, depending on your point of view. But they have a dinner and he's basically saying, look, I'm going to quit my bomb day job so I can be with you and your little girl. So presumably he'd be the stepfather, and there's a new marriage to be spoken about. And just again, as a woman watching this scene, she's like, I'm really terrified that you would give all this up for us. I know there's a lot of pressure to put on a relationship. I'm like, the man you ostensibly love wants to stop trying to blow himself up daily because apparently that's a big problem in Boston, by diffusing bombs. Instead, he wants to be a teacher. And you're like, I don't know, maybe you should just keep putting your life in harm's way every day. And I was like, I think I would run from her. I think that's not a normal reaction for anyone.
No, she was supportive of his personal need.
This is the beginning of a development thread that I heard because I had to be in meetings like this where he's like, you don't know me. I hate my job. I can't sleep. I don't want to do it. I think it's and he gives you all the reasons why you should be doing what he's doing. But then she says to him, it's like, I don't even know who you are. And then he's like, would you like to marry me 2 seconds later? And you're like, I don't know who you are. Would you marry me? I'm like, that's a weird scene.
Mm-hmm.
But
he shouldn't have proposed at that moment.
But I don't know who you are becomes a runner with everybody, like the cops he works with, the squad he never told to, who he says he is to himself, who he says to Liam. But like it starts ostensibly with him saying, I think I'm going to quit the job that could kill me so I could like be alive and we could be together. And she's like, I don't know how I feel about that. Okay.
Well, right. I mean, that's a classic cop wife thing. It's like,
but they usually say, yes, quit, come home.
I mean, in the movies, I don't mean in reality.
He keeps going back, and he keeps
going back.
That's the tension, and he likes doing this. That's the thing. Like he's,
Yeah, it's the only place where he feels important and alive, and she just wants to support that. And I don't think that's bad. I don't.
If my loved one was like, I'm going to stop endangering my life, I'd be like, that sounds like a really rational decision. That would be my comment. But not everyone's the same. That's why we go to movies, to see other points of view.
Right. Yeah. So, all right. We're 45 minutes into this thing.
This is where he's living. What is happening? Does anyone know? Like, what? I thought this was really strange.
The boat in Boston Harbor that's abandoned and nobody's noticed it. You thought that's weird?
And that's where our guy is.
If you've been to Boston and Boston Harbor, there's all kinds of garbage in that water.
I missed it. I feel cheated. So then you see he has like this obsession with Bridges because he's putting his face on things and like there's royalist stuff going on. So we can, I guess, and we cut immediately.
Oh my God. That shot. Go back to that shot, Tracy.
This one.
So this shot, I have a clip from the movie. That aligns with this shot.
Amazing.
And it's Tommy Lee Jones by himself on his weird broken ship. And
dolphin. What is scarier than the dolphin?
Yeah, no, nothing scarier. So he's on he's coming back on his ship with a bag of stuff that he's gotten. Of course, we can't play actual clips So,
to make some whimsical bombs.
Yeah, whimsical bombs.
Yes.
So he shows up on his ship with a bag of treats for whimsical bombs, and we can't show actual clips. So Hillary Anderson is Tommy Lee Jones in this clip.
The weapons, Liam. You can never be too safe. One fine lady, balancing all things. Oh, yes. For Boston, please. The bomb squad. I'd like the address as well. Oh, there we go. Beep, beep. Oh, no, ma'am. No, it's not an emergency. Woo! 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 Woo!
Oh my God. Hillary, oh my God, she nailed the shirt. When his proud to be an American, I was crying. I was like,
she had an American flag.
It's just straight up, like, that's just what happened in the scene. It's not, there's no exaggeration.
That's exactly, you're right. That is it. We did an exact replica of the movie.
Ooh, that's a good point, Jeff. Visually, it absolutely, that's a good call. I wonder if they were influenced by Blown Away. Wouldn't that be wild?
That would be wild.
I love that.
I think the most important thing to take away from this is Tommy Lee Jones's accent work is, in this particular moment, is amazing and stupid and silly.
No.
And we need to acknowledge the greatness of that. Like just to lean into whatever you've chosen as an actor, and not alter it in any way throughout the course of the film. I think it's great. I like, if you make a choice, the most important thing is to stick with that choice.
Well, I think it's also, and I think maybe male actors don't deal with this in a severe way as female actresses. But when you get to certain ages, men get to age a little longer, of course. But like, Bridges is hunky as can be, but he's already 45, and he's like, let me get on this action guy bandwidth, right? And I think with Tommy Lee Jones, it's hey, I just got an Oscar, and I want to get on the action train as well, having done this before. And I think, and I get to be a little sexy and a little crazy, and everyone wants to be the villain, and they're going to put cute girls around me in a bar. All these things he's not known for. I think he's just like, I'm getting a payday, and I'm having a lot of fun. And I get to work with someone like Jeff Bridges, who's also amazing. And we should also talk about, like, you have like an extra called Cuba Gooding Jr., who just a couple years later is going to be a supporting actor Oscar himself winner, right, for Jerry Maguire. So it's like you've got him sitting next to Whitaker, who's going to be winning for King of Scots. Right? It's like you've got Oscar winner, all these 4 Oscar winners in like this movie about, God, man, Boston Bomb Squad. There's a lot happening. I mean, Dick Wolf doesn't do that show because it doesn't happen enough, right? So they're like, we should do a film about this problematic thing. But I think they're all just having so much fun. But I think they're bringing this amazing talent they have to a very big popcorn movie. And so I kind of love that. I mean, when I was working on, I think it works to varying degrees. In other ways, it does not. But working on like the Ang Lee Hulk, what was interesting was we absolutely wanted to make a smarter Hulk movie. So we hired the guy who just did Crouching Tiger, but we thought the character work from Ice Storm together made sense, that maybe we can make a more elegant thing, because maybe, don't hate me, but maybe the Hulk isn't as interesting. Hulk smash. Okay. But what's interesting is Banner, not Hulk. It's ego, it's character driven. So let's get someone who cares about people and see what he can do with the budget.
You're never going to beat the TV show.
You're never going to beat the TV show, but we missed it because the TV show gets the loner and the isolation. Right. And that more effectively. And that's a heartfelt thing. And I think what Bridges, God bless him, is trying to do in this is, I've got the ghosts on my past, screwing potentially with the future love of my life, and how do I move past this, because I have guilt about all of this. And then you've got, Tommy Lee Jones, who is on revenge. And I think, to Jared's point, your note would have been a way better thing. This guy set me up. I know where he is, and I'm going after him. It would have been a lot more clear. But the murkiness of studio development, when I watched this, because I started working around this time, I'm like, oh gosh,
the bad version. The bad version is he breaks out of the cell. There's an explosion, and then you linger in the cell for a little bit, and there's like a burned picture of young Jeff Bridges or something.
100%. That would be it now. But yeah. But there is something, like, they are aspiring to be better than your typical popcorn film. I would argue that it does now. It's like, well, I don't think anyone, and I don't mean to cast aspersions because they're hugely successful, but I don't know if the filmmakers behind Extraction are like, how can we really make a backstory that's profound and deep? I don't know that that's what they're thinking, but here there was an attempt to do that. So credit where credit's due.
Can I have
in this, there's some really good, just the reflection in his pupil when.
Oh, let's talk about this. On his wedding night, he makes a phone call like, hey, what's going on? And then, of course, right outside his bedroom, we see this.
Yeah.
And then they go into a bath to this, right? Is what you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
We're like, this is like, am I watching Blade Runner? Or like, what is going on? But it's this thing where it's I think it's Steven, the director, really trying to create a visual style. Like the sound design he does so that the bomb sounds small, going inside the pinballs and the Rube Goldberg machine he has. I feel like he's trying to create an aesthetic to make this interesting and to elevate.
Let's have Jared take us through the entire narrative at this point. And I'm giving you 7 minutes to explain the entire movie.
Well,
Jared.
Okay, so at this point, Ryan Garrity knows that Liam McGivney is now Jimmy Dove. He's in Boston. He's a bomb squad guy, and so now it's his mission to get revenge on this guy, and he's going to get revenge, and by doing so, wiping out every member of his team one by one, and threatening his now family. And so we have a series of set pieces in which and so this guy gets called away from the wedding. His name is Blanket. He gets called away played by the great Ruben Santiago Hudson,
who a lot of us grew up loving on Castle, who was wonderful on that show.
And so Blanket gets called away to go take care of a bomb under a bridge. The explosion happens. The great scene with Forrest Whitaker there. The explosion happens. Jimmy sees it from his honeymoon suite. He leaves, and inspecting it later, he realizes that, okay, this is the way this was planted. Somebody had to know that this guy was going to be where he was to kill him. I'm a little lost on the how exactly that bomb worked with but there's
also, he talks about ricocheting a bomb off of cement. But before
it ricocheted off the wall and it killed the.
But there's this beat that's weird, because when we talk about studio development, I just think this is good. I might teach this because it's so obvious, the scenes that are there that have been dropped and don't have payoffs, but you get that Bridges is back and he's teaching the class, right? And this is where we see again, this is, Cuba has one line with Forrest, and Whitaker's character is supposed to be he's like the maverick of the bomb. I'm young and I'm great and I'm the best. And so Bridges one-ups him and sets up a trap in a classroom situation where it goes off. So there's blood everywhere. And then you see this, and all of a sudden it's Tommy Lee Jones, as if cops don't notice they've never seen this janitor before. And there's no payoff for having him in the bomb squad. But it's a whole scene, and you're so the villain is right there, and this isn't John Doe in the stairway in 7. I get it. I can see that Brad is ragey and wrathy, and I can set him up for my final beating that film. This one, you're just like, these guys, the cops, he's right there. And then when they never notice him, and it never pays off story-wise. It's just a scene that doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Another big problem is just that there's not enough of the two of them together.
Yeah,
probably so. So they figured out. I like these scenes where you can see them shooting the scene, like you can see the director in the second helicopter. Oopsie. But so then we get to another great set piece, right, where his team starts to be wiped out. The poster that we all remember, if you remember anything from the film.
Oh, yeah.
Craziness afoot at Boston. Lots of big explosions, and then we've got, it's kind of almost like, I don't know, The Insider, right? The beginning of cell phone scenes where he's talking, this is the moment, right, in the film, Jared, where suddenly Bridges realizes his past has come to his present. Tommy Lee is now in Boston, and Tommy Lee, of course, is having this phone call inside his house with Susie Amos and the stepdaughter coming home. And so
which is about halfway through the movie, which is like way too late.
Way too late. This would be the end of the first act.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of, it doesn't, it's I think wrongly kind of billed as an action movie. There's some action set pieces, but it's not like
it's not an action movie.
It's more of a.
You're right. It's a thriller. It's a thriller.
Ideally, it's but like, so at this point, we Bridges rushes from this crime scene to the house because he knows that Garrity's in there, and so on the way there, so we intercut between his motorcycle and, which I love. It's probably one of my favorites.
It's a great sequence
where they're turning on appliances in the house, the oven, the light in the pantry, the plugging in the phone, and there could be a bomb somewhere, and it could be any one of these places. I thought that was
like a Final Destination movie that never adds up to a death.
Well, the dog dies.
But I agree. But
the dog dies.
But I agree with you though, Jared, because I was like, this is such a great sequence. But this is the thing. I think this is kind of what we would, and I don't mean this in a bad way. I think people want to be entertained. It's nothing wrong with making a programmer. But I think this is another example of Stephen Hawkins trying to elevate that with like kind of Hitchcockian, like, like the inside of the plug and the this and the that. And you're like, oh my God, it can go off at any moment. Like even just the way her hand hovers over the refrigerator and then she takes it away. And then he puts it back. And he's really screwing with the audience. And I think it's, again, for a movie that's, it is what it is. But I think he's doing what he can to elevate. And then, of course, Bridges has to now come clean. You are not safe if you are with me. Sorry, we just got married, but there's things happening. I need you to, I don't know, hide on the Cape. Because you have been described as a violinist at the Boston Pops.
That's where everyone who lives in Massachusetts goes to hide, is the Cape.
Well, it's so cool to be paid so well as a musician. I'm glad to hear that. Multiple homes.
You have to. There's nowhere else to hide.
Well, I think, don't they go to Max's cottage?
Yes.
Yes.
But they're together and they have their.
But it doesn't work out, and they have to go to the Cape. Just cut out the middleman and go to the Cape.
This sequence is pretty cool. Of Tommy Lee looking creepy, building things for no good use, which turns out we assume. I have to admit, when I first saw the close up, it looked like it was a contact lens, right?
That's what I thought too.
Yeah, but then apparently it was like he was jury rigging. Good old Forrest Whitaker's headset and subwoofer, which sets up this great joke, I suppose, where he's like, hey, my wife is into astrology, and she basically said, be afraid of a big dog, and this is a woofer. I gotta go. Peace out, bitches. But he leaves, and then Jeff Bridges has to save Whitaker. And I'm like, okay, what a weird joke. But that's a thing. And we cut to the Cape. Again, beautiful cinematography, more than they needed to do. And Creeper is there. Again, looking kind of glammed up right out of Z Gallery / whatever, Zara. Disturbing. Like the way he plays this, I thought, again, to Todd's point about the performance, I don't know, Todd, as an actor, did you find that the way he's working Susie here with the kid, did it work for you?
Absolutely. As an actor, it works, but it's also, as an actor, you don't often get parts like this where you get to be that over the top, ludicrously aggressive with people.
With the crab.
Yeah, it's Tommy Lee Jones's entire career goes against good acting. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in a good way. Like, he is anti-method in the best possible way. And I think he does it. I like in B movies like this, he does everything he has to do. And then in movies like The Fugitive, he goes beyond.
So amazing.
Yeah, Tommy Lee Jones is all about the writing. If you write him well, you're going to get the best possible fucking thing you can imagine. If you don't write him well and you leave it up to him to figure it out, it's going to be weird and delightful for anyone who like loves movies and acting.
Right.
But on the beach, it's funny. It's like he could have just played it as like he just could have done that. He just could have done a regular Tommy Lee Jones, but he said he decided to do Ryan Garrity trying to do an American accent.
Yeah.
Well, but that's a dedication. Like if you're dedicated to whatever as an actor, and it's and what you're dedicated to is an accent. If you're whatever the accent is, I don't care. If you're consistent about the accent through the entire film, I'm 100% behind you. It doesn't matter if it's accurate or not. In this movie, his Irish accent is ludicrous, but he maintains it throughout. He doesn't like lose it. Like Jeff Bridges in this movie loses his Boston accent to an Irish accent, and I think maybe that's like a actor's choice because he's playing a guy from all these different places.
Or it's like it's like when you go home when I go home to Alabama and I start talking with a Southern accent again. You know, now that he's around Ryan Garrity, he starts speaking with he gets a little more rubs off on him a little bit.
That's exactly what I'm saying. I would say like Jeff Bridges' waffling accent in this movie is more appropriate for his character than Tommy Lee Jones's completely consistent Irish accent is entirely inappropriate for his
character. I'm going to say it's exactly the Michael Douglas failure in Ghost in the Darkness under the same director. And no, I think this is a director who does not want to be not liked by
Hopkins does not know. He imagines actors are doing what they're supposed to do.
Exactly. So this is, and again, I think Jared nails it because the structure of the script is wrong. We needed to get to this place at the end of the first act. So the second act would be about getting these guys on the run and, racing to the team against each other at logger jams to the third act where we do the thing. So this is the part where don't think too much, but suddenly Lloyd Bridges is like, yeah, I'm going to talk to this guy who sells hot dogs at a stadium. And he's going to say, you should go to the only Irish bar that we ever established in the thing. Cause that's where your guy is going to be. And you can do the thing. And here's the money. And here's the address. Okay, cool. So then of course our poor guy, right? Bridges gets picked up and beaten up. And then, they have some allusion to a saint being shot that he jury rigs with Dayglow. I guess the 80s also touched in 94. Bomb situation with Jeff Bridges trying to save his real life dad and on-screen dad as well. But of course he now gets to his dad's like, I don't want you to die too. I'll stand up. I'll save us both. And so Bridges literally has to watch his own father explode in front of him. Can't be fun.
But he was a secret father, so that's his own problem.
Well, it's been a while since he hunts. So that's all happening. So that's really intense.
Lloyd Bridges, by the way, Dad Bridges, Lloyd Bridges, his Irish accent is full on Lucky Charms. Yeah. It's like Lloyd Bridges thinks he's in a Naked Gun movie at this point, or a Hot Shots thing.
Every line is things like she only wears knickers to keep her ankles warm. Things like that.
It doesn't make it so. His performance. God bless Lloyd. All the Bridges. I'm 100% behind all the Bridges, but his performance in this movie is awful.
But also, I felt nostalgia because you've got Lloyd and Jeff in the same film.
Oh yeah. I'm not even talking about that.
No, but there's something. I think that's probably why they leaned into it. It's like when Jamie Lee's doing The Fog, and then Janet Leigh shows up or whatever, and you're like, oh, it's a nice little film buff kind of thing to have. But
the only time they got a chance to work together.
Yeah, and it's
Lloyd died a few years later, so
it's a nice thing. It's like it's not a great movie, but Peter Fonda directed this film called Wanda Nevada. It's like Peter Fonda, like 15 years out from Easy Rider, with a very young Brooke Shields at the height of her Brooke Shieldsness. But it's the only time that Peter and then Henry get to be on screen together. He plays like this old prospector they find in the Grand Canyon or something. And so you've got at least a couple moments on film of Henry and Peter. And I feel like when I see scenes like this with a little bit of the dynasty, it's like, I don't know, I get a little sappy for it. But he sees his dad explode, and then what does he do? He's like, let's get drunk and play with guns.
He gets in the hot tub. That doesn't work.
It doesn't work, but he's drunk with guns. And he fires a gun.
No bubble.
Susie Amos is like, I'm out of here. And I'm like, he's like drunk with guns.
She's like, I'm going to work.
He's like, I got to go. I'm not hiding anymore. And then we cut to him going, wait, there's a dolphin on this thing. And then it's like, oh,
he sobers up real fast.
He knows exactly where he lives. A dolphin can only mean one thing: that boat no one pays attention to in the harbor. Now, Bridges could just kill him and the film could end, but that's too easy, right? So we have a knockdown, drag down fight. There are bombs that get set off, nails that go into Jeff Bridges. We've got kind of a Poseidon Adventure-esque vision of a boat that's on fire, but yet somehow everyone's fine. Forrest Whitaker shows up, Witter ex machina, to save him just in time. They jump out, all is good, but yet at the same time, to your point, right? It's the 4th of July. Susie Amos is playing. She survives playing. No bomb goes off, but we know that there's a bomb in her Jeep.
Just to pause, going back for a little bit. The fireball or the ship was like one of the. That was crazy, like one of the craziest like practical explosions. Really impressive.
Yeah, it's
people
very
are
good.
falling through windows, and I have no idea the geography of that ship, because people just keep falling down stairs and things blow up.
Yeah.
Like, there's windows and there's things.
And Forrest Whitaker comes in to save the day. We got to
right at the last minute.
For some reason knows where Jeff Bridges is at.
Exactly knows, because hashtag dolphin. We don't know. It's good.
It's because of dolphins.
But we've got the scene where he's got to like figure it out, and then you realize while she's driving over speed bumps and can't stop, which actually funny, don't use the brakes. The same year that Speed comes out, again, there's another uncomfortable set piece corollary, right? But he does.
Yeah, I mean, it's like full on. The end of this movie is exactly Speed, but in 10 minutes.
It's true, and
it's interesting they came out at the same time, because there's no way that Blown Away was ripping off Speed.
Not at all.
I mean, unless they had an early draft of the
script had been out. The script had been out for a bit. But
yeah.
I don't know
to be fair, because I remember being an intern, because I'm that old, when the Speed script came out, and people gave me as an intern that you should read the original version of Speed, because at the time, at least the production company I was working at, Speed was making all this money, and people were very concerned because there's like no character development. It's like Sandra's really cute and she can drive, and Keanu's really hot and he's like, and helps her drive, but like there was no character development, but it was so crisp and well done. It just was that an inflection point in that genre at that moment. Whereas this one actually tries to have characters. You can debate how well or not they're developed, but it tries. Speed is like, we don't have time. It's like real time almost. Let's go. And so what's interesting, I think, about this one is that they really did try, but the Speed script was known, I was told, as a joke in development terms. They called it the Bomb on the Bus movie. The original ending to Speed was not what we know it as, because the 105 was being built, and a clever producer said, well, we could just use that, right? Because we don't have to lock anything down, and it's not. The original ending to Speed, she had to drive around Dodger Stadium making those turns at 50 miles an hour. And so it was like every, what minute at 50 miles an hour, and like how long can you possibly hold that up without flipping the bus? But that was seen as a safer way, because it was an empty stadium if the bomb were to go off. So that was the original third act, which would not nearly have been as cinematic, obviously, as what Jan de Bont, again, coming from being a DP turned director, opened that film up. But with this, so that it's possible they could have read that, but I think this was something else. I think they just, it's sometimes, it's a variation on a theme. I think is what we're seeing. Anyway, so, you know, Whitaker puts together who Jeff Bridges is. There's an understanding between men. There's this uncomfortable thing where Whitaker wants to
I love when there's an understanding between men.
Yeah.
Because that
I get credit for your work, and you get to have your
fixes everything. It fixes everything. When two men can understand stuff together, then everything is fine.
It's like one of those truisms, like the end of Terminator 2. If a Terminator can learn to love, perhaps we all can. Like, you just killed everybody and shot someone's knee out for laughs, and your ending line is the Terminator can learn to love. I love Cameron. He gets away with everything. So
he doesn't in my head, but
I know you're way more judgy. I love
a dick. I'm one of those guys that he calls an incel. Like,
no,
he literally
called,
he said, if you're worried about the graininess of my movies, you need to get out of your mother's basement.
I love that too, because here's the thing that's funny, because what he's talking about is very specific to 1986 Fox grain on that, and Cronenberg's Fly had to use the same film, so he finally could digitally remove it. And frankly, as an Aliens aficionado, it looks better, and I'm glad he did. And anyone who wants to be like, it doesn't look as shitty as when it came out, I'm like, okay, sit down. This is not Steven Spielberg putting a walkie-talkie in where a gun was. This is not Lucas saying, no, Han didn't shoot first. This isn't that. This is Cameron going, I hated that film stock then, but I had to use it. Problem solved.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. I've not watched any.
We have bigger problems, people. We have bigger problems.
Yeah, we seriously have bigger.
We don't need to worry about grain stock from the Kodak stock.
Yeah, we have bigger problems, but I have not seen them, and I don't know how distracting they might be. Because these are movies. Yeah, I'm not the guy who thinks the James Cameron movies are so great.
I know
they're beyond reproach. So I wait to see these movies in their 4K glory, and I'll decide whether or not the moment in the abyss where Ed Harris just bangs on Mary Elizabeth Mastrangelo to get her to come back to life works. Maybe it works more.
I saw it at Beyond Fest in Westwood. It was like a year or so ago.
I own it.
And that people were laughing at that moment. I'm like, what's wrong with you people? Like,
100%. I was a projectionist the opening day of that movie. It's such a beautiful moment, and it's really, and it's character based and driven. And everybody who wants to tell me why like DC films are worth watching can get back to me, because that's how you do it.
All I'm saying is that moment is medically inaccurate, and the fact that people laugh at it. The fact that you guys have experienced laughter while screening it.
I haven't.
Well, I mean, okay. Jared
I projected it for 8 months in the summer of '89, and no one laughed. Everyone was in tears.
All right, that's fine.
Can we talk about the music?
Oh my God, Alan Silvestri. Right?
Alan Silvestri, really good score.
Yeah.
Very kind of sounds very different from a lot of stuff he was doing around this time.
It does. It's I don't know. It's so funny because I think because I was starting to intern when this film came out, and I was starting to get read into these things, and then would go into meetings about movies like this when I was at the studio level, and all I can see is the development notes on this, and it's just like, and I think the flaws are mostly that, but I think Hopkins more or less rises to the challenge. You know, he is really working with really talented people, from, again, Cuba Gooding in a tiny little role to, like, you know, Bridges. I mean, to your point, right, Jared? 4 Oscar winners in this little popcorn film. I mean, like, fabulous. But it's of its time, but it's still entertaining in our time. And I think right now, and Todd and I talked about this our last couple of shows, I think we almost come to the same conclusion, because our timeline now is so frenetic, perhaps stressful, and maybe we're going Fourth Reich, we don't know. But like watching films from this era where we had, 9/11 hadn't happened, we were a completely different mindset. There's something nostalgic and fun, and in a weird way, the political incorrectness about a lot of the things, and even the needle drop of U2, I think would probably elicit laughter from my interns now, but like there's something about it like, oh, I know why they did that.
I wish the U2 they use different U2 songs.
Yeah, they're the wrong songs.
Like use I Will Follow or Bullet in the Blue Sky or some like things that like are a little bit more moody, central.
If you want to be on the nose, Sunday Bloody Sunday. Like
I'm 100% behind no one ever using U2 songs again.
Well, but it's funny to your point though about the U2 of it all, right? Because in 96, I think it was the second season of Friends, but like when Ross and Rachel finally hook up, it's to With or Without You, right? Where there's that moment. So it's like the funny thing is like a year before, it's like we're in a terrorist bomb movie, and now it's like Ross and Rachel finally are having sex, and you're like, it's like so this song shouldn't work for both moments, which means it doesn't work probably either.
I agree, and I'm like one of these guys who thinks U2 is not good. I've seen hang on. I've seen U2 live in stadium shows 5 times. I've spent my U2 time. 7, great. That just suggests you've given into the cult.
I have a problem.
And it's fine. Have you experienced Scientology? All I'm saying is U2 is as mediocre. It's as mediocre and corporate as a band can be. It's not. The sound of U2 is anything but Irish. It's American. I don't like U2. And God bless everybody if they do. But watching this movie again and having Tommy Lee Jones dance to the U2 songs, for me personally, was hilarious.
It is hilarious, and I hope they thought that was an intent. Yeah, exactly. I agree. Like it's so good. I just think it's funny. Oh my, yeah, the Cranberries too, because I felt like what are the most obvious like Irish bands, and then let's drop those. Like that's what this movie does.
Yeah, but there should be like Black 47 in this. Like at this time, if you had Black 47 or even the Pogues, what the fuck?
That's what I said, man. Shane should have been all over this.
And the Pogues was all about bombing shit.
But also like, oh gosh, I don't. The Dropkick Murphys were around back then, weren't they?
No, probably not. But they were just after.
Just after, okay. Yeah. But I think there could have been a lot of good sounds. But again, this is made to fill mall cineplexes, so I get it, and I'm also
it's so Irish music. When I was in college,
right, go ahead.
No, you go.
Well, I think it was just for that one moment where he, where he's at the yard sale or whatever, and he's buying the woman gives him the tape, and he's U2. He's like, you who? And like it's the most obvious band that he's never heard of because he's been in prison. So like, and it's that the music's only in there because of that.
I love jokes like that. Like one of my favorite is The Rocketeer. He's like, I'm the Rocketeer. She goes, the Rock of who? If you're not in love with Jennifer Connelly at that moment, I don't know what to tell you.
I did love his line there. See what the lads have been up to.
You totally. So good. All right. So final thoughts. Jared, revisiting it again for the show. What stepped out to you? If people haven't seen it before or they haven't seen it since 1994, like me, what would you tell listeners about this film?
I think there's a it's not a perfect movie, but I think a lot better than a lot of shit you'll see nowadays. And I think the level of craftsmanship that's gone into it, and like it's a movie made with people who clearly, cared, and not all of it works, but it's a fun movie. And I think it's a good time.
Thank you, Todd.
I totally agree with Jared about it. It's and I think that's what makes a great shitty movie is a dedication from its makers to making a movie. They were just trying to make something that was entertaining. It doesn't matter if it's bad or good or whatever. They just wanted you to sit down and be entertained. And I would say, and this movie suffered from coming out the same year as Speed, which is a way better Mad Bomber movie. But this is like, also you have the performances that are like, everybody's leaning into it. They're doing the best they can.
They are. Yeah.
Like the slow-mos of Jeff Bridges, like, no.
There's so much slow-mo in this movie.
There's so much slow-mo, but like, if you're going to do slow-mo, do it on Jeff Bridges, because
he sells it, man.
He's just in it. And so you get the slow-mo of Jeff Bridges, which is so good, worked great for the trailer. I like, my ending thoughts are, this is as good as a Hollywood top end movie can be, and the stuff that's bad about it is delightful. So yeah, just enjoy Lloyd Bridges' terrible Irish accent and Tommy Lee Jones's terrible Irish accent.
Yeah.
And then enjoy, things blowing up and Jeff Bridges going in slow-mo.
The preset pieces. It's Boston.
100%. I want to co-sign everything Todd just said, because I felt very similar. And it was weird because I was thinking about, we were talking about, like, there's things sometimes in this ecosystem of studios because of the era in which they're made. And it occurs to me that there could, someone way smarter than I am could do some interesting thing on, Speed versus Blown Away, that come out around the same time, couple weeks, months apart, whatever. And I think someone could do a similar think piece on Copycat versus Seven. I feel like if again, this is the SAT question of the Encyclopedia Brown answer key, whatever metaphor you want to use. I feel like I think Copycat is actually, don't fight me on this, a better script than Seven. I think Fincher takes Seven into artistic heights that it was not on the page. And I think when you have those two actors, Brad at his peak, I'm becoming the movie star, and Morgan, because always Morgan, it becomes art. Like, that movie is dark and demented, and you actually don't see the violence, and you think you see all kinds of ugly things. I think Copycat is more of a programmer popcorn film, but it's also populated with Holly Hunter and Sigourney Weaver. And the problem with Copycat was it came out,
and Harry Connick Jr.
Of course, and Billy McNamara, we love him so. But like, there's something about Copycat, had it come out before Seven, I think would be more highly regarded, because I think Copycat is quite revolutionary for the serial killer genre, in that you have two female leads trying to take out the bad guys who aren't victims of the killer they're taking out. So that was very progressive and interesting, and not how that script was originally written. It was always Holly Hunter with a male partner. And then Sigourney came on and they said, wouldn't it be interesting? And so there's a connection to Blown Away. Wait for it. It's a long way to get here. So Holly Hunter had just won the Oscar for Best Actress for The Piano. She has the same agent that Sigourney has. Jane Campion originally wanted Sigourney for The Piano. Agent read it and said, this is more Holly Hunter than Sig. Gave it to Holly, not to Sigourney. And Jane Campion said, I'm looking for a Sigourney Weaver type. So why not give it to Sigourney? So then there was a little bit of, how is Holly Hunter a Sigourney Weaver type, right? So smart agent said, let's put them together. And so Holly Hunter's follow-up to winning the Oscar for The Piano was to be in Copycat. Tommy Lee Jones' follow-up to winning an Oscar for The Fugitive was for being in Blown Away. So you had Oscar winners cashing in on a populist popcorn flick that was perhaps the lesser its counterpart. Thus, that's my connection.
All of that sounds like representatives fucking up as hard as they can.
Correctamundo.
That's right. I think real balls to take a script that's submitted to one actress and give it to another one.
My God.
Yeah. But then there, as much as I love my Sigourney, and Todd knows I do, Ripley Forever, I don't know that I buy Sigourney as
Holly Hunter was great.
I love
for that.
It's not about what actresses you love. And in fact, I think
actors in
general, I just feel like at a certain point, their representatives are doing such a disservice to them.
Correct.
I mean, Jamie Lee Curtis is in an Eli Roth movie right now. And I think that was a horrible mistake. I think it was a mistake. She's getting money, and that's great, but it will only be something that she has to come back from. Because Jamie Lee Curtis is ultimately just an actress. So
Some of us think the coolest
I don't think anybody looks at that as like a knock against her.
it's going to be a blip. No one will remember.
I hope so. I hope you're right. But like a lot of times, these kind of things can turn into an albatross for an actor or actress.
Also, Jamie Lee, from what I've read, because I'm going to see it this weekend, has a tiny role. But if I'm Jamie Lee Curtis, I want to work in a movie with Cate Blanchett. So I get why
for sure. But and I've worked in TV shows and movies with some of my favorite actors of all time. That doesn't make the movies good.
No.
And it doesn't mean it wasn't a problem that I had to overcome. So I'm just saying that,
I get the choice.
I don't have the problems with Eli Roth that you do, Tracy.
It's true, you don't. I know. I'm very clear about them. I'm like,
yeah. But this corporate garbage,
cabin fever, I say Evil Dead.
This corporate garbage that they're putting forth with Jamie Lee Curtis is not doing a service to Jamie Lee Curtis. It can't.
That I will not disagree with, because I think that lady is, I as you know,
she's great, and a lot of the people are great in this movie, but the movie's garbage.
Yeah.
And it will hurt everybody involved, except Eli Roth probably, because he has more to fall back on.
He always gets to work again. All right, what are we doing? Be Bad, Be Best. Oh, Jeff Luce. Borderlands was okay. I haven't seen it. So you liked it, Jeff? It's a popcorn. Okay, I'm gonna get back to you, Jeff, after I see it.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think Jeff was pretty high when he saw it.
I'm not gonna cast this version. Okay, so we're doing Be Bad, Be Best. Todd, do you want to go first?
Yeah, for sure. Let me find my thing here. Here I am. Be Bad, Be Best. So all of my picks tonight, so you know, Jared, are all Stephen Hopkins films. So Be Bad or Be Best. Is it so bad you shouldn't watch it, or it's so bad it's awesome? Stephen Hopkins, Lost in Space, with Gary Oldman, William Hurt, the guy from Friends, and a bunch of
Matt LeBlanc.
I saw this movie once, like I think after it came out, and I've not had an urge to revisit it. So I'm gonna say Be Bad.
Okay, it's so bad you shouldn't watch it. Tracy?
I'm going to say, in the context of this show, Be Best, acknowledging that it's bad, because I think it's such, again, maybe Hopkins is like like a bellwether of the era in which he was most prolific. The idea that you take someone from Party of Five and someone from Friends and then anchor it to William fucking Hurt in a science fiction film is so crazy. It makes no sense. That there's a part of me that's like, I kind of love the insanity of it. It's not clear to me that anybody involved with the film saw the original TV series, but it doesn't matter. I remember seeing it in the theater. To Jared's point, I saw it once in the theater opening night, because I grew up with the William Hurt thing. I was like, ooh, Altered States in Gorky Park, and Eyewitness, and he's so cool, and the Big Chill. But like, I actually remembered thinking, this is really dumb, but it's super fun. And I remember thinking it was fun and dumb and not really the TV show. And at the time I thought, well, that's good, because the TV show is so good. Why are you doing that? You know?
Yeah.
So I kind of think, I don't know. For me, the Netflix treatment to that IP is the A version, but this is like the Z version. That the way, if you like Flash Gordon, you know, the Sam Jones Flash Gordon, then you should probably enjoy what Hopkins did to this.
That's actually a good point. If you like that Flash Jordan, no reason.
Yeah. So I'm not saying it's great. I'm just, so Be Best by a. Yeah.
It's I mean, for me, it's a terrible movie that I love, and the main reason I love it is the tie-in music video. So I'll just show this again. So I got the New Line Platinum Series DVD of this.
I love that about you.
And it's got a music video.
Mimi Rogers, I miss her.
Yeah, I do too. There's a music video by an Australian pop band, and it's so fucking hilarious. And me and my friend Steve, we just decided to take it and put ourselves into it. I wish I could show you that.
No,
it's we can't because of a copyright infringement.
yeah.
But like I highly recommend if you can find the DVD, get it, look at the music video. It's just the theme from Lost in Space with some lyrics. And if you can't find it, just come to my house and I'll show it to you.
I like that.
It's so wonderfully bad. It's great bad music. I highly recommend.
All right.
What's yours?
My Be Bad, Be Best, because it seemed obvious and somehow strangely connected to this movie. So I wanted to hear what Jared had to think about it. Straight down the middle, not necessarily in a bad way. Ron Howard's attempt to do Fire Backdraft.
Oh, okay. Jared, where are you on Backdraft?
Look at that cast.
I haven't seen Backdraft in ages. It's like, it seems like I remember kind of liking it. I remember it being kind of dumb, but also like, but I remember like as a kid, like everyone talking about this movie.
Yeah, it was a big movie.
It was a pretty big hit, I think. And then, and I just remember like the crazy all-star cast, and but I can't really say I like Ron Howard, so I'm gonna give it a B best.
Okay, that's fair.
That's totally fair. Yeah.
Todd O. Anderson.
Oh, Backdraft is 100% B best for me.
Yeah.
And I have a love-hate relationship with Howard as a director. I do, because some of it is just offensive to me and some of it is really fun. Backdraft is a melodrama, so you have to approach it from that perspective, I think.
Fair.
This is a melodrama about firefighters. And it's sort of ludicrous in its plot machinations and all that stuff. But goddamn, if you go, we go doesn't fucking work for me. It totally does.
It does.
I think this movie is very fun, and also I'm so sorry to announce that all you people who didn't go to Universal Studios theme park in the 90s and early aughts, you didn't get to see the Backdraft. It wasn't a ride. It was
a soundstage, and it had like a little film. He was like, "Hi, I'm Kurt Russell."
It was the coolest thing I've ever seen at an amusement park.
It was
hands down. You walked in you go in and they're like, here's fire in this like small area over here. And you're like, oh, that's cool. And then they walk you in, and then there's like there was a walkway that just dropped down while you were on it. Yeah. And then there was just like all this fire and explosion that happened. You felt the fire. You felt the fire. Yeah. Like I can't think of another amusement park ride that made me feel like I was actually in danger. Yeah. That one did. I don't know that it was responsible or right, but it was great. The Backdraft ride. So I'm 100% behind Backdraft. Yeah. I think it's a great movie.
It's a B best for me because I remember even when I saw it, I think Jared's right. It is dumb. Spoiler alert.
Yeah, it's totally dumb.
There's literally a scene where a building's on fire and our team of firefighters get in the elevator to get up to it. I'm like, I don't know. That's, but okay. So there's that. But there's also these like ridiculous scenes where like Billy Baldwin, because he was like the guy they thought was going to be the next guy. But like, having sex at the top of like a fire truck as it's going out, and I was like, oh,
with Jennifer
Jason Lee.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, oh my god! So they're like having sex.
How is that not every heterosexual American man's dream is to have sex with her on a fire truck?
But it's also unexpected in a Ron Howard film because he doesn't really do sex usually. So it's like this weird moment where you're like, wow.
Have you not seen Night Shift?
I have, but I think that's before he was Ron Howard. It's like a first movie, kind of beyond the Roger Corman school.
So if it's the first movie, the sex doesn't matter.
It doesn't count. But I also love that. So you have all that going on. You've got Billy Baldwin trying to be like, the next guy. Kurt Russell for the age.
Billy Baldwin giving absolutely nothing.
Absolutely nothing. It's like, it's weird that Fair Game with he and Cindy, didn't work either.
It's still better than Steven because Steven gives stuff and it's not good.
Well, yeah, he gives bad evangelical vibes for many of us. But like the thing is that when you watch Backdraft, what is so fun is that you've got there's the sex on the fire truck, there's the we're going in elevators because that's the safe thing for us to do with fires, and then there's the Donald Sutherland, the great late Donald Sutherland. What do you want to do? Burn it all. I want to burn them all. He's doing Hannibal Lecter as an arsonist. And I'm not convinced that he's not doing a better job than Hopkins. And he has more screen time than Hopkins, not hard.
I think he's better. Hillary does.
Hillary so good. But the way that just alone, Donald Sutherland, like he doesn't blink and he does this whole monologue about fire. And it's kind of like we're talking about the Indianapolis and like Jaws level where you're like, oh, and I don't associate that with Ron Howard films. So I think it's this weird design for multiplexes, very well done. It's trying to be a disaster film, but I think Todd's right, it's really a melodrama. So it's got a lot going on. So it may not be the best film, but I think it's a really entertaining popcorn film. So I wanted to kind of say be best, but I felt somehow connected to Jared's choice tonight. I think if you did a double bill at the New Beverly of Backdraft and Blown Away, you would have a really good night out at the movies. And in a way that we don't make these films anymore. They're not based on IP. They're not all this kind of nonsense. But I miss these films. These are fun.
Yeah, I agree.
I was just reminded. So it kind of ties in like The Fugitive, and so Stephen Hopkins directed a reboot of The Fugitive for Quibi back in like 2020 with starring Kiefer Sutherland.
No,
what?
Yeah, and as Boyd Holbrook was the guy on the run, and
oh my god, you remember Quibi?
And Kiefer was basically playing like Jack Bauer as like with a Southern accent for some reason.
Holy cow!
Worth checking out if you can find it.
Yeah, I will. I will look at that.
That's incredible.
Tracy, let's do this. Let's do the indie effect.
Oh, we're going to go to the indie effect.
Yeah, let's end with the boost. I want to end on a positive note. The indie effect is kind of somewhat negative.
Okay, I jumped the shark on the indie effect. I don't judge, but
oh, okay. What's your indie?
So typically for those of us like you who haven't watched every show, so the indie effect, there's a South Park made it a joke. Reddit users talk about it all the time. Did Indiana Jones actually impact story with Raiders of the Lost Ark? Because at the end of the day, the Nazis would have found it. They would have opened the Ark. Their faces would have burnt off. Indy doesn't really drive things. That's a theory. Whether you subscribe or not, that's cool. So we're just using that as is there a character that just doesn't seem to impact the narrative of a film that's somehow there? So I have to dig deep because I think most films have characters that matter. So I decided to jump the shark and kind of cheat. Instead of a character, I wanted to use a MacGuffin. Because usually a MacGuffin is a thing you don't have to understand so much. Hello, Pliskin.
Hi, Pliskin.
It makes his appearance. Hello. Snake Pliskin. So I was like, you know what? One of my all-time favorite films, probably my top 20 for sure, is Colin Higgins' Foul Play, 1978, Goldie Hawn, Chevy Chase. Todd and I bitch about this all the time. Goldie Hawn needs 4K everything, all of her films. Foul Play is perhaps one of her best. I think it's so and
most of them aren't available.
You can't stream them, and it's a bad pen. Anyway, so Foul Play is a Paramount Pictures 1980 comedy about, wouldn't it be funny if someone tried to kill the Pope? You're canceled. What would happen if Goldie Hawn was a library, Gloria Monday, hanging out with Chevy Chase, his first film after being kind of the hit on Saturday Night Live as a leading man. And he's a cop who smokes pot in San Francisco. And so it's just this kind of delightful, weird thing from the writer who gives you things like, Harold and Maude and Shampoo. I mean, amazing writer, Colin Higgins. So Silver Streak, watch Silver Streak. Anyway, so the whole thing is Goldie Hawn, you have to believe, is single and can't meet a good guy in 1970 San Francisco. And her friends are like, just take a chance. So, of course, Barry Manilow is ready to take a chance again. There it goes, foul play theme song. Up a hitchhiker, which is probably not the way to take a chance, ladies listening. And he gives her a pack of cigarettes. Hey, Gloria, I'm trying to stop smoking. I'm going to give you this. He puts microfiche into the cigarettes and gives it and puts it in a purse because he's onto something.
Mm-hmm.
He's onto the plot to assassinate the Pope. Everything you need to know is in the cigarettes that are there. Nobody ever finds the cigarettes, nobody opens the cigarettes, and nobody ever sees the microfilm or whatever Scotty gave her. Instead, when she's kind of like there's a break-in, her purse goes flying, the cigarettes go. Burgess Meredith, her landlord, who's creepy, but not in a Mickey Rooney Breakfast at Tiffany's creepy because it's not as racist. He comes in and he has a pet python snake, as one does in 1980 San Francisco. Ismay. How many times have I told you, do not eat the cigarettes? He takes the cigarettes that has the microfiche with the entire plot of the film and he throws it into the fire. And then Colin Higgins, because he's such a fun filmmaker, goes to the python. He goes, and then he like literally ADRs a laugh from the python. And so the whole thing that puts her in jeopardy, the whole thing that has the plot of the film, no one ever sees. It's burned up. It's completely irrelevant. So it's not a character that doesn't do anything. It's the MacGuffin that just nobody ever saw the thing. Everyone's fighting for something they never saw, and we never saw it. We never, as an audience, saw it. We don't know. I think it's an indie effect because it's a setup that we dropped.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. But I love the film. I love the film. It just doesn't.
No, totally fair. I have my indie effect is this. This is a Stephen Hopkins film. He directed Nightmare on Elm Street Part 5.
Dream Child, not Dream Warrior.
The Dream Child. Thank you, Tracy. Yes, it's The Dream Child. And there is a character in The Dream Child who's part of a band who's played by Ted Nugent.
Oh my God, I love that you did this so much.
And it's entirely in the background, and you wouldn't know it's Ted Nugent unless you knew Ted Nugent is involved. And I love Stephen Hopkins. I like his movies. I love very much. But there's no reason to hire Ted Nugent on anything, anywhere, even though this is back before we knew he was a monster. But like, it was clear to me Ted Nugent was a piece of shit back then. But also, why give him extra money? And if it had been someone else other than Ted Nugent, like a musician or actor who needed the work, it wouldn't have made any difference. And then some actor or musician who's not Ted Nugent would have gotten a job and would have had they would have had a credit and something to point to.
Residuals.
Yeah, residuals, all that stuff. The residuals really don't matter. But all I'm saying is Stephen Hopkins chose Ted Nugent when he could have chosen somebody who nobody knew. And it wouldn't have mattered one way or the other.
That's true.
That's all I'm saying.
That's true story.
It is true. All right, here we go with the boost.
Okay. This is also connected to Jared's choice tonight. I think a better, smarter, interesting film that also maybe ties into pyrotechnics with Jeff Bridges that I hope it's not forgotten, but I don't see it brought up enough, so I wanted to boost it because this film reminded me of it. The great Mark Pellington, who also should be working more than he does. Arlington Road. Your
yeah.
Real. Tim Robbins, Jeff Bridges, much like Tommy Lee and Jeff in the film you chose, I think have a really interesting rapport and are at odds. And again, this film comes out before 9/11. And I think if you watch this film before, again, before 9/11, when it was made, and I think as Zwick's The Siege before 9/11.
Oh, yeah.
If you did a double feature of those two films, I think Hollywood is
That's a great double feature.
It's a predictive thing. But Arlington Road, I really think is effective, and I wanted to boost it because if people haven't seen it, with all the paranoia and the culture wars and the of our time that I don't like, this one's safe because you got two white boys who are fighting it out. But like the domestic terrorists perhaps are real and might remind you of some of your MAGA neighbors, perhaps. But like you can watch it through a different lens today. But I think Pellington's film is not only predictive about how divisive we're going to get and how much we're afraid of our neighbors and certain people want to keep us afraid, but it is a super smart script, brilliantly performed. And I think, Robin's coming off of something like Shawshank, where everyone, oh, we love him and we can trust him. And then all of a sudden he's the next door neighbor. Can we not trust him? What is he really up to? And I think it asks really uncomfortable questions, which is probably why it didn't make more money. But I think if you watch it through 2024 eyes, you will be surprised at how ahead of its time it was, and that it still is current and works as an effective character-driven thriller in our time with two really great performances with no bad accent work by the two male leads of this film. So I just wanted to boost it because I feel like I don't hear people talk about it enough.
That's a good boost. I like Arlington Road. Jared, where are you on Arlington Road?
Good movie. I think I was like, I've posited the question to like writers over the years, just like it's like what's how can we do this today, like what and make it sort of but no one's really cracked it, and I haven't really it sort of got backburnered, but like I think it was way ahead of its time. I think just Mark Pellington was like should have, I think there was some personal tragedy.
He lost the love of his life. His wife died so young, and he was taking care of the kids. And we've been lucky. He's watched a couple of our shows and said some nice things in our comments over the years. But I think he's a director that we live in a weird time. But I would trust that man with any script.
Mothman.
Yes.
Yeah, Mothman's really good. That's a very underrated movie.
And also he starts with that 90s, the last gasp of really interesting music videos in the 90s, like Jeremy spoke in class today. You want to talk about violence in school classrooms? Mark Pellington's making a short film with Pearl Jam, right? Like those videos were about something and elegant and really filmmakerly. So you can see why he was, able to step into film, which today I don't know how to help younger filmmakers do it as easily as the music videos allowed that generation. The propaganda filmmakers, whether it's Antoine Fuqua or David Fincher, all those guys. And so I feel like, and all guys mostly, no girls, but we'll work on that. But like there's something interesting about Pellington that I think he's a cerebral filmmaker who understands how to get under your skin. I think 1 Hour Photo also, right? So, but
I just started thinking about 1 Hour Photo during this conversation.
Yeah. And showing Robin Williams in a very specific way that Robin didn't really dip into that.
Probably one of my favorite scores of all time, 1 Hour Photo.
Yeah, it's good.
It's good stuff.
And I just noticed that there was a series version of Arlington Road in development with Pellington.
Yes.
Was there really?
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, maybe I'd watch that, but it's like it's better as a short story. I think
doesn't appear in streaming anywhere. That's just wrong. I'm so old. I had the DVD, but yes, if you can find it, seek it out.
Yeah, that's crazy that Arlington Road isn't readily available. But Jeff, when you're out in Simi Valley, California, call me. I'll show you my DVD copy.
Nice. All right, what are you boosting?
Here's my boost. It's all my movies tonight are Stephen Hopkins joints. This is a movie that is comfort food for me whenever. I don't know. It might be racist.
Is it Diet Mountain Dew?
What's that?
Is it Diet Mountain Dew?
No, it's not Diet Mountain Dew.
Attack for being a
I don't know.
racist.
Maybe it's the
I
movie.
don't know.
Maybe it's the movie equivalent of Diet Mountain Dew. But all I know is every time I watch it, I find it enjoyable. I've seen it a million times. When I'm in a bad mood, I'll put it on. And I know that a lot of the actors in this movie are garbage people. And despite that, I watch it a lot. And it's called Judgment Night with Emilio Estevez, Cuba Gooding Jr. Isn't that his name? And then the guy who did those electronic cigarette ads. Yeah, this movie is a perfect B movie to me. It delivers everything I want from a B movie. I think it's very fun. Tracy, what do you think about it?
I saw this film opening night in Westwood.
Oh, nice.
I loved it. I think it's crazy. I think it's every dude's nightmare. And I just like
every white dude's
nightmare. This was not made for me, but I freaking loved it. I think it's funny. Again, I think it's better than it's given credit for. It's kind of a punchline for a while, but I think if you go back and watch it, and I don't mean to say, in comparison to what we do today, but in comparison to what we do today, it actually works, and it's quotable, and it's fun, and there's something about the chemistry of those guys that
they do. The cast has great chemistry.
It works together. Like, I don't need to see 2 of the 3 ever again in my life, but like together they're good.
No, you don't want to see any of them again, but together they're great.
See one again, but I won't name names to protect the guilty.
All right.
Yeah, and there's like with this, there's just some like crazy like. It's like this movie had no business looking as good as it does.
None.
Yeah.
Some of the shots in this movie are like, it's unreal. Like some really cool split diopter stuff. And
oh yeah,
Palma thing, man.
Yeah, and it just looks amazing and great soundtrack.
Yep.
It's one of the last soundtracks that was financed by the studio making the movie. And the soundtrack, I have it on CD. I have CDs. It's amazing. It's like hard rockers and hip hop people doing covers or original songs for this particular movie. The songs are made for the movie. That doesn't happen anymore. We don't do that.
No,
it's a Dudes Rock Hall of Fame movie.
Yeah,
it's so true.
I saw it like a year ago. They screened it at the Los Feliz 3.
Oh, really?
American Cinematheque. Yeah. It's
a fun one. I think actually a really funny version. Like this to me is like the trying to be edgy take on a certain theme. I would pair it at the New Beverly with Lawrence Kasdan's oh God, what's the one that he does? It's like everybody in Los Angeles.
Grand Canyon.
Because it's the same thing where the whole Kevin Kline, I went home from the farm and then I turned over and then someone's gonna kill me, and so then I pull this kid. So then I got, Danny Glover as the AAA guy or whatever to come bail my ass out, and that's that's the way to do it, not crash the,
I think for me.
Yeah, but Grand Canyon is the good version of Crash. The way that I think Shortcuts is the good version of Crash. There's a lot of good versions of Crash. Crash is not a good version of Crash.
No.
Yeah.
For me, I would say Judgment Night, Trespass.
Oh yeah, that's a great double feature. Yeah.
Which it's another sort of urban blight kind of.
Yeah.
This is more of a Treasure of Sierra Madre kind of vibe to it. So much fun. Really good movie.
Yeah. And
Bill Paxton. Jeez, how can I forget Bill Paxton?
Yeah, Bill Paxton. Yeah, we're talking about Bill Paxton movies. God bless that guy.
Miss that guy.
One time I was in Ventura, the city, and just walking around, and he walked by me, and I said to my wife Hillary, I think that's Bill Paxton. And we just watched him walk, and we're so happy that we're so close to Bill Paxton. It was great.
Well, he's got that, what is the dubious distinction? He's been killed by a Terminator, an alien, and a predator.
Yeah.
He's that cool.
Yeah, he's that cool. He's been killed by all those guys. But I also like a douchebag he always is.
But there was a sweetness to him. Like you could tell, like in real,
like for sure.
You love him. You just like, even Chet.
No, yeah, absolutely.
True Lies. I mean,
True Lies. Oh my god! And then he shows up in Titanic with his like sun bleached hair, and he pretends to care about this old lady's like erotic stories, and you're like, dude, Bill is like acting right now. Good shit. Oh my god, Jared, thank you so much for coming back.
It was a real pleasure. I'm glad
we've gone on too long.
Anytime. I know we went. I blame Todd. He blames me.
Yeah. And I felt bad because I didn't write enough stuff down, but that was
too much fun. Too much
fun. That was great. Don't feel bad. That was awesome.
We don't like to rehearse or be professional. I don't know what part of
we do this like reality TV. That's what we do.
Except not even as scripted as that. We're like, what? Okay.
But it was really, really good seeing you guys again.
Yeah, you too, Jared. Is there anything you want to plug before we sign off on this thing?
No, not. I mean, you can watch Sugar on Apple TV. I have a client who worked on that, hoping for season 2, starring Colin Farrell. That's probably. That's
great. It's fun. I love that got made. I love that genre. I love LA noir detective stuff. And when people are it doesn't. I'm like, every time you guys finally make one, we love it. I need you to stop saying things like that. It's
and also, so it was before I forget, there's another show on Apple. My client Barry Levy wrote and show ran a show called Me, which is like kind of a YA. And it's getting really good reviews, but we need, we're hoping that Apple renews it for season 2. So
cool. So watch
that shit, everybody.
And Me's a half hour, so like, and it's that's very easily digestible. It's very good. Michael Dalza directed a lot of the episodes.
I don't watch shows that are over 7 minutes.
Well, we introduce you to Quibi. You heard of Quibi?
What?
Bites.
No. Where do I get that? How do I get that? How do I get Quibi?
Oh my god. Amazing. All right, everybody, thank you very much for tuning in. It's been a busy time and a crazy time. Todd and I had some things planned for next week that I think we're going to just play it by ear. So check the page for details. But next week, believe it or not, is the 4th anniversary of the madness that is My Favorite Shitty Movie. We've been doing this for 4 years.
Wow.
So
congratulations.
Is
it a congratulations?
I don't know, man. I think it's a sickness, and you guys helping enable it.
It's free therapy. I think.
It's free therapy, and I get to talk to somebody who I absolutely adore, who loves films, and we nerd out. And we're lucky because we get you find people like Jared to come on and play. And
oh my God, Jared Murray, you're my favorite Murray brother for sure.
Thanks, man. That's
oh my God.
That's what my mom says.
Love it. All right. Thank you all. Have a great week. Be kind to each other.
We'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.
Okay. Bye, everybody.